Happy Monday, and welcome into Send It In, presented by BetMGM here on the BetMGM Network. I'm Ride Solo for the next 30 minutes, you guys. Actually, my guy Shawnee Sharp's going to join me middle of the show for the Shawnee Sharp Sports Bet Minute. He's going to give us a good story from vacation. He's back from Disney World. Also, we're going to update you on all the NFL news that is going on as free agency officially begins today. But it is nothing but college hoops for a majority of the show. Final day of the regular season was yesterday, so we got a bunch of conference tournaments to preview. It's a Monday, so we're also going to dive in to my top 10 teams in college basketball here over the next 30 minutes. As always, we want to hear from you guys on the show, especially this time of the year. We know a lot of you are really starting to dive deep into March Madness. You want to learn about some of these teams, so let me know what you guys are betting on. Let me know any questions that you have regarding any of these teams. You can hit us up at the BetMGM Network on YouTube, on Twitch, on X as well. And if you miss any part of the show over the next 30 minutes, make sure you check out the Send It In podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get this thing rolling. Glasses in session. Let's start with a little glass ball as we look at the top 10 teams in college basketball. And it's really clear cut for me, you guys. I mean, all the teams that I'm going to mention are going to be 1s, 2s, or 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament. So this year, as of now, I don't feel like any of the best teams in the country are like 4 seeds or 6 seeds or anything like that. I really do feel like all the best teams are the top lines, the 1 seeds, the 2 seeds, and some of the 3 seeds as well. We'll start with who I think right now is the best team in the country, and that's Duke. They're plus 350 right now on BetMGM to win the title. Auburn is still the slight favorite ahead of Duke. I do feel like at this point, though, that the Blue Devils are the team to beat. Now, something to keep in mind regarding Duke is that one team since 1990 has won the national title when only 3 teams have made it out of their conference, right? And it's looking like the ACC is only going to get 3 teams, Duke, Clemson, and Louisville. The only team to win a national championship that sent 3 teams from their conference to the big dance was actually UConn last season. And if you guys remember, St. John's, Seton Hall, both of those teams were squarely on the bubble. But because of all of the surprises that we had of teams winning their conference tournament, we had a lot of bid stealers last year, right? NC State winning the ACC. We had Oregon winning the Pac-12, among others. So we probably should have gotten like 4, maybe even 5 Big East schools last year. But this year, unless North Carolina probably wins the ACC tournament, we're looking at 3 teams that are going to represent the ACC. And that's the big question regarding Duke. They're number 2 in offensive efficiency, number 4 in defensive efficiency. But the Blue Devils have not played anybody the last like 2.5 weeks. Listen to this stat that I saw that's just like, it's mind-blowing considering how great the ACC has pretty much been for the last 20, 30 years. There was not one ranked matchup this year in the ACC between any 2 teams. Not a single one. So when Clemson played Duke or Louisville played Duke or Duke played Carolina, whatever it was, there was not one game this year in the ACC involving 2 ranked teams. So there's no surprise that they're only probably going to send 3 teams to the NCAA tournament. And also, I think it's a legit concern that Duke hasn't played anybody for the last 2.5 months. We've talked about it a lot on this show. They're 1-3 in games decided by 6 points or less. I do think they're the best team, but I certainly have my concerns about Duke. I also have my concerns about Auburn, right? I mean, for so long, they looked invincible. They looked like this untouchable team. They have 13 quad 1 wins. They were just rolling through the SEC. But now they're starting to get a little injured, and now they're starting to show some flaws. They dropped the game at A&M. They dropped the game at home against Bama as well. We're getting ready to preview the SEC tourney a little bit later on in the show, and I think Auburn is a great favorite to fade. I do not think you should bet Auburn. I think there are some better bets. Auburn, I kind of think, sees the big picture. The rest at this point is way more important to Auburn than stacking wins, because I already think they've clinched the number 1 overall seed to this point. I think they can lose in their first game in Nashville in the SEC tournament and still be the number 1 overall seed, and I still think they're the second best team in the country. The third best team, I think, is the Florida Gators, and their odds to win the national title continue to drop. They're now 6-1 over at BetMGM. Florida's been an ATS machine in SEC play. And the Gators, man, where Auburn is starting to get some guys that are injured, Florida's starting to get healthy. Their big guys are back. Elijah Martin's back. Walter Clayton's playing really good basketball. And watching Florida play Alabama last week, Florida was just the better team, plain and simple. They also won at Auburn without Elijah Martin. So Florida definitely is good enough to win the whole thing. They're number 3 on offense, number 10 on defense, according to Ken Pom. Gators, for me, number 3 team in the country. I'll put Bama at number 4 at 12-1. Bama's defense is starting to get better and better. They're now number 31 on defense, according to Ken Pom. You got to be inside the top 22 if you want to win a national championship. That's usually what it is. Top 40 offense, top 22 defense if you want to win the Natty, according to Ken Pom. So Bama's got to continue to climb a little bit, but their defense is heading in the right direction. We know that offense is more than capable of winning a national championship. But the emergence of Grant Nelson in that Auburn game, he has not been good the last month and a half for Bama. Played his best game of the season against Auburn. Mark Sears only had 9 points on the road in overtime, had 7 before that game-winning shot, and Bama was still able to beat Auburn. So it just shows you how much firepower they have. And when Grant Nelson plays like he did on Saturday, it takes Bama to another level. I'll put them at number 4. Houston, for me, is going to be the number 5 team in college basketball. They're 8-1 to win the whole thing. So I gave you guys the stat on Duke that since 1990, you've only had one team that's won the title who's had 3 teams from that conference go to the NCAA tournament. Well, my big concern with Houston is that since 2004, every national champion has been inside the top 12 of the Week 6 AP poll. Week 6 is so important because it's the part in the season where the non-conference slate ends in college basketball and you get ready for conference play. Houston dropped 3 games in the non-conference. They were ranked number 15 in that Week 6 AP poll. So I know a lot of smart people, a lot of people's whose opinions I respect that like Houston to win the national title this year. Defense, as we know, is championship caliber. Kelvin Sampson's a heck of a coach. They're shooting the three-pointer as good as they ever had under Kelvin Sampson. But I do worry that we're getting a little too caught up in what they're doing in Big 12 play, and we're forgetting this was a team that dropped 3 seasons in the non-conference on neutral floors. So Houston 8-1, still not interested in betting the Cougars to win the title. Then we have Iowa State. I'll put the Cyclones at number 6 in my top 10 rankings. They're 25-1 to win it all. Iowa State's an interesting team. I would look at them potentially to win the Big 12. We're going to talk about that conference tomorrow. But Iowa State is getting healthy. Feel like we have a team like this in college basketball every year where they're really strong to start the season. They go through a little bit of a rut middle of the year. They have guys in and out of the lineup. They're kind of like the Big 12 Illinois right now. Illinois is starting to get healthy. Well, so is Iowa State. I'm interested to see how they look in Kansas City this week. I think the biggest concern for Iowa State is that, yes, they have all their guys back, but they really don't have a lot of games to get their chemistry going before the tournament. That would be my big concern. St. John's will put them at number 7. What a performance from the Johnnies on Saturday at Marquette. I mean, that was supposed to be a loss for St. John's. You have the Big East regular season title locked up. You're without one of your better players in Smith. You go on, Patino and the players go on Jimmy Fallon. They're celebrating their success. Then you go on the road. Marquette hasn't beaten a tournament team since January 3rd. You know they wanted that game bad. St. John's still found a way to win it. We'll put the Johnnies at number 7. Tennessee, for me, is going to be number 8. I see Tennessee and St. John's as similar teams, both elite defensively. Can you get enough offensively from those teams to go deep in the tournament? I like St. John's upside way more, and I trust their coach way more in Rick Pitino than I do in Rick Barnes. Then at number 9, we'll go with Texas Tech at 40-1. I have my concerns about the Red Raiders. I just mentioned to you guys earlier, Houston was not inside the top 12 of the Week 6 AP poll. Well, Texas Tech wasn't even ranked. They didn't really play anybody in the non-conference. I like this Texas Tech team, but I think certainly with the wrong matchup, they potentially could lose in the second round of the tournament. And then Michigan State, I'll put them at number 10. Their defense is excellent. Hall of Fame head coach in Izzo. But I still have my concerns about this offense. And I know that they're just rolling through the Big Ten right now. They've had a really difficult schedule. They're winning all these games, and they're winning it by margin. And they're covering spreads. They're winning by double digits. But I think with the wrong matchup in the tournament, this is still a team that shoots less than 30% from three-point range. You just cannot advance deep in the tournament when you shoot the ball that poorly and you don't have elite offensive playmakers. Their defense is very good. Offense still remains a big question mark for me. So Michigan State, my number 10 team. Once again, Duke number 1, Auburn 2, Florida 3, Bama 4, Houston 5, Iowa State 6, St. John 7, Tennessee 8, Texas Tech 9, and Michigan State at 10. All right, let's go to the Big Ten conference previews here on Send It In. Before we do, our guy B Mills in the chat. Hey, PJ, I got Dayton to win the A-10 at 5-1. Also took VCU at -110 so that I win some if either win the tourney. What do you think on that conference? Certainly feel like it's a 3-team race, B Mills. I would think it's either VCU, Dayton, or George Mason. Mason had an incredible start to the season. They've kind of wavered a little bit down the stretch. I think VCU is the play in that league because they might have to win that conference tourney. That might be a one-bid of league. So VCU's the best team. Love their coach, Ryan Odom. Max Shulga's a very good guard as well. I think they're the best team. I think they get the job done because I think it's a one big lead in the A-10. So I would go with that, but I do like your Dayton look at 5-1 as well. As for the Big Ten, I think this is going to be an interesting conference tournament, right? So here are the matchups that we're going to get in the first round on Wednesday. It's going to be Northwestern and Minnesota in the 13-12 game. Then you're going to have Ohio State and Iowa in the 10-15, Rutgers and USC in the 11-14. Then in the first round on Thursday, the only set matchup that we have is Indiana and Oregon. And that's where I'm going to start because I think both of those teams 60. I really believe that one of those 3 teams is going to win the Big Ten tournament. I think it's either going to be Indiana, I think it's going to be Michigan State, or I think it's going to be Oregon. The Ducks are the team that I like the most in March Madness. I would keep an eye out for Oregon. I've talked about them a lot on this show. They were a perfect 11-0 in the non-conference this season with wins over Bama, wins over A&M. Dana Altman's a great tournament coach, and they tend to do well in their conference tournaments. They won the Pac-12 last year when nobody thought they would. So keep an eye on Oregon. Indiana, if there is a team that's going to be this year's NC State that just goes on a magical run, I think it's going to be the Hoosiers, the Hoosiers. And I love the storyline and I love the narrative right now around Mike Woodson, right? And the fact that about 3 weeks ago, he told everybody that he was going to step aside and this was going to be his last year. And ever since he said that, Indiana's been playing unbelievable. They've been playing great basketball. It looks like even if they lose to Oregon in that game on Thursday, they're probably going to the tournament. I think Indiana's got some NC State feel to them. I think the storyline just kind of writes itself. And keep in mind, the Hoosiers had that magical year in football with Cignetti. Wouldn't it make sense that maybe the basketball team has a magical year? We talked about last year, it was the year of the Wolfpack. They had a women's and men's team made it to the Final Four. Their college baseball team made it to Omaha. Maybe it's just Indiana's year. So I keep an eye on the Hoosiers, not only in this tournament, but if they make it, I think it's worth to sprinkle a little something on them to make the Final Four because you're going to get some insane odds on them. So I love the top half of the bracket. I think your winner is coming from one of those 3 teams, Michigan State, Indiana, or Oregon. The bottom half of the Big Ten region is also very fascinating. Illinois, I think, is going to be a very trendy pick. They're plus 650 right now to win the Big Ten tournament. They're going to get the winner of Ohio State and Iowa. Would think Ohio State's probably going to win that game. Illinois should take care of Ohio State. They won the Big Ten conference tournament last season. And then the winner of Illinois and Maryland, if Illinois does advance, I think the winner of Illinois and Maryland is going to go to the Big Ten championship game. So if you were to look at like a conference future for one of those teams, maybe you want an option to basically hedge your bet. I think looking at the Terps at plus 480 or Illinois at plus 650, I think that's the way that I would go. If you're looking for a team that's playing on Wednesday in the first round that maybe is going to win 2 games, I think the winner of USC and Rutgers would be the look. I think one of those teams is going to beat Purdue in the second round game on Thursday. I'm just not high on this Purdue team. Get them away from Mackey Arena. Their defense has been abysmal here the last month, 5 weeks of the season. And then on top of that, if they're able to get past Purdue, then you get Michigan, who's waiting in the wings. And Michigan is the team that everybody wants to play right now because it feels like all their pixie dust and their magic have kind of run out. So that bottom half, USC and Rutgers, Whoever wins that game, I would look at maybe some mechanical just parlays, just roll over, keep betting those teams to beat Purdue, beat Michigan. I think you could have some chaos in the bottom half of the bracket, but that's why I like Maryland and Illinois. I really think the bottom half of the Big Ten tournament opens up for those two teams because you got Purdue as the 6th seed and you have Michigan as the 3 seed. But again, my champion, if I had to bet it, if I had to pick who does PJ think's going to win the Big Ten Conference Tournament, I would go with Michigan State. Michigan State, I think, is the team this year in college basketball that just gets so hot at the end of the season and everybody falls in love with them. And it's the trendy pick that all the talking heads in the media say, this is the team you don't want to play. This is the team that's as hot as anybody right now in college basketball. We see it like every year or every other year, whether it was Keegan Murray's Iowa team. Last year it was Auburn. Michigan State had that team with Denzel Valentine when they lost to Middle Tennessee. You see these teams all the time that get hot towards the end of the year, win their conference tournament. Everybody talks about how you don't want to play them, and then they end up losing in like the first or second round. So keep an eye on Michigan State winning the Big Ten, people falling in love with them, and then I think we'll pick them to be upset early on. I did place a wager on Oregon at 18-1 to win the Big Ten tournament. I think Indiana could be worth a bet as well at 55-1, and the Michigan State, as I told you guys, I think they're probably the play to win the conference tournament. Getting a question in the chat, can the Terps win it? They could. Again, I think they're going to make it to the finals. I think it's probably going to be Maryland and Michigan State, top 2 seeds, maybe Oregon and Maryland as well. I think the Terps could win it, but I would not bet it personally. I think your bet is to take Maryland against Illinois. It's probably going to be like a 2.5, 3-point spread. I think there's a good chance that the Terps or Illinois, like I was saying, make it to the Big Ten finals. All right, let's go. Shawnee Sharp Sports Betting Minute. Our guy is back from vacation, from Disney World. Shawnee Sharp, how was that? Was it truly the most magical place on earth?
It was truly the most magical place for my golf swing. I'll tell you that. I golfed out of my mind down in Florida. The mouse helped me out there. I don't know what they put in those clubs that we rented, Peach, but it was good. I birdied we golfed twice, walked one. It was 9. Both were 9 holes. And the other one we also golfed. One was the Oak Trail, the other one was the Palm. Palm is sometimes where they'll host like the Classic, the Honda Classic there, I think sometimes. Very long course. You could tell it's a PGA course. I birdied the first par 5, which honestly the putt that I hit, I had no business going in. I don't know how it went in, but it did because it's the most magical place on earth. But yeah, so I mean, it was a good time. Did that, went around Epcot, drank a little bit, did drink around the world. My parents, me and my dad got in a fun, heated discussion about will the White Sox go over or under 53.5 wins? The team that had the worst record ever in Major League Baseball, will they have over that? I say no. He says yes. So we'll see. But so yeah, it was a good time. It was nice. It's good to be back. Waking up to my alarm this morning was not fun, but you got to do it. So
well, we're glad you're back, Sean. Glad you had a great time.
Thank you.
And you're coming back to all this sports news. We got NFL free agency starting today. So what can you tell us why we've been on the air maybe like 30 minutes before? Who are some of the recent signings that we have in NFL free agency?
Yeah, Peach. So right now, as people from over the weekend, as they know, the saga with Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns come to an end. He signs a 4-year extension, be making about $40 million per year, including $123 million guaranteed with the Browns. Josh Allen last night signs a 6-year, $330 million contract extension, including $250 million guaranteed with the Bills. DK Metcalf, remember he requested a trade last week. He's been traded to the Steelers for a 2025 second round pick, which also Chase Claypool got traded for a 2025 or got traded for a second round pick. But that's neither here nor there. He also is signing a 5-year, $115 million extension with Pittsburgh. Devontae Adams signed a 2-year, $46 million contract with the Rams. Chris Godwin's returning back to the Bucs. They've been busy today. He signs a 3-year, $66 million deal. But Tampa Bay also signs Hassan Reddick to a 1-year, $14 million deal. My Chicago Bears get a center. They signed former Falcons center Drew Dahlman for a 3-year, $42 million deal. The Commanders had just recently, before we came on the air, signed Javon Kinlaw to a 3-year, $45 million deal. And then Khalil Mack, some people thought he was going to come back to the Bears. He is not. He is returning back to Los Angeles with the Chargers on a 1-year, fully guaranteed $18 million contract.
All right, there you go. Yeah, I know X is down right now for a lot of people, so Sean, appreciate the update there on some of that news. I would say some of the big takeaways, certainly Myles Garrett yesterday. I mean, the guy seemingly was like putting his foot down. He doubled down that he wants to trade, and then the Browns give him a boatload of money, $123 million in guaranteed. They solved that issue. It's going to be interesting when the markets open up on BetMGM's second overall pick, what that looks like. I think there's a world where the Browns still get Abdul Carter and they pair him with Myles Garrett. That could be nasty. DK Metcalf obviously going to the Steelers. I mean, look, Pickens and Metcalf, that's a great 1-2 punch. I kind of tend to think Aaron Rodgers might be a Steeler now. We'll see what happens there. Love the Devontae Adams signing for the Rams. That's just to go along with Puka in that McVay offense. I think him and Stafford are going to work great. I really like that signing for the Rams. And then Chris Godwin going back to Tampa. I think that's a great deal for both parties. Godwin obviously coming off that ACL tear, 3 years, $66 million. Keep him in that offense with Mike Evans. Baker Mayfield the last 2 years has been great at quarterback. So, yeah, the receiver market has been interesting to watch, but I like the move for all three teams. Obviously for Pittsburgh, now you kind of got some weapons to build around who they get at quarterback. That'll be interesting to see. All right, back to college basketball. We talked about the Big Ten conference tournament. I mean, I think this is the one that everybody's looking forward to, right? The SEC tournament. It's looking like we're going to have 12, maybe 13 teams that represent the SEC in March Madness. You're going to have 2 1 seeds, 2 2 seeds, some 3 seeds. It's going to be absolute chaos. So there are 16 teams that are playing in the SEC tournament, which means that on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we are getting wall-to-wall college basketball in the SEC tournament. It's going to be epic. It starts with Arkansas and South Carolina in the 9-16 game. Then you're going to get Texas and Vandy in the 12-13, LSU, Mississippi State in the 10-15, and then Georgia and Oklahoma in the 11-14. Some big bubble games. Texas Vandy is going to be a huge bubble game for Texas, and obviously playing there in Nashville. It's going to be a home game for Vanderbilt. I would expect them to have certainly a better crowd contingency than Texas. Oklahoma, Georgia, that's a big game for both of those teams. I think Georgia's probably in the field right now after beating Florida and a win over Vanderbilt, but certainly another win Oklahoma would be huge for them. Sooners, you got to win that game against Georgia, so that'll be interesting. Mississippi State, I got to tell you guys, I like the path for the Bulldogs. So they open up in the 10-15 matchup against LSU. Then they get Missouri if they win that game in the next round. And right now, Missouri is the team that you want to play in the SEC. I've talked about Mizzou a lot on this show. I still love Missouri. I love watching them play. Their offense, when it's clicking, is electric. But their defense has really, really struggled here as of late. They've given up a lot of points to just about everybody they've played over the last 4 or 5 games. So Mississippi State going against Missouri. Now, I talk about Mississippi State all the time, and this is a team that's matchup oriented. And usually when they go up against the high-flying offenses like Missouri, they tend to really struggle in those kind of games. But the way that Missouri's playing defense here recently has me think that Mississippi State's going to be able to score with them. So I think that game's going to be interesting. Regardless of who wins it, though, sets up really good for Florida. I think the winner of that game, Gators, should be easy to move on to the semifinals. Bottom of that bracket, you got Kentucky facing the winner of Georgia and Oklahoma, and then Bama's going to be the 3 seed. Keep in mind, Nate Oates has won the SEC tournament a couple times, and they tend to do well every other year in Nashville. So last year they had a first-round exit. Usually Bama bounces back the next year and plays pretty well. And again, I know they've lost 2 of their last 3 games. They should have beaten Tennessee, and then they pretty much dominated that game against Auburn. They were winning for a majority of the game. Bama's absolutely going to try. They're going to get their full effort. And they know if they play Florida in the semifinals, that game is likely going to be for the number 1 seed, potentially, who gets that last number 1. So that could be a massive game. I think Bama and Florida are on a collision course to get that semifinal matchup in the SEC tournament. Top half of the bracket, Texas A&M is the team I would keep an eye out for, right? I know with all the depth that the SEC has this year, everybody's looking for that long shot, right? You don't want me to give you Florida or Alabama or Auburn. You want me to give you the 30-1, the 50-1 to bet to win the SEC tournament. And I think if you're looking for that longer shot, it would be Texas A&M. Buzz Williams' team the last 3 or 4 years has been really good in Nashville. They were a really good non-conference team this season. They're very good on neutral courts, the way that they switch defenses. And again, they're such a high variance team. If they're knocking down their shots, they can beat anybody. We saw that earlier this week when they took down Auburn. After losing 4 in a row, the Aggies have won 2 straight games. I think they're starting to find themselves a little bit. And like I said, they're very tough to deal with in this tournament. They're going to get the winner of Texas and Vanderbilt. I think that's a good matchup for them in either of those games. Vanderbilt just won at College Station, so I think A&M would be looking forward to getting them back. And then I just think A&M's way better than Texas. They had a big-time collapse when they played them in Austin. Texas came back to win that game. So the revenge for A&M to get the winner of that game, I think bodes well for them. And I think they can beat Tennessee, absolutely. Both those teams are similar. Both struggle on offense, both excellent defensive teams. But I would like Texas A&M in that game. And then Auburn, of all like the Power 5 teams that we're getting in these conference tournaments, I think Auburn's one of the 1 seeds that I'm really looking to fade. They're the favorite, obviously, plus 160 to win the SEC tournament. But I really just don't think this is Auburn's priority. And that's not to say that they won't try or they won't care, because you do want to be SEC tournament champs, but they got to prioritize their health. They got to make sure that they're right and they're ready, getting going for the NCAA tournament, which obviously is the big thing next week. So I think Auburn could be primed for an upset here. I would be concerned about them. I think that Ole Miss-Arkansas winner could be a tricky game, especially if it's Ole Miss. I think that could be tough for Auburn as well. So I just like the way that it sets up for A&M. You know, it's a revenge game for them if they get the winner of Texas and Vandy. I think they can beat Tennessee. And then Auburn is a 1 seed that I'm really looking to fade. It would not surprise me if Auburn doesn't even make it to the semifinals. So A&M would be the long shot that I would keep an eye on at 30-1. But I think the winner is probably going to be Florida or Alabama. I think the winner of that semifinal matchup is probably going to be your SEC tournament champion. If I had to pick who that would be, I'd take the Florida Gators. Again, when these 2 teams played earlier this week, Florida was just the better team. Their defense was so impressive against those Alabama guards, and then their offense, man. Walter Clayton, the way that he controls games is very impressive. If you are in states where you are allowed to bet player props, I would continuously look at betting Walter Clayton over points throughout the SEC tournament. I think they're going to ride him. I think he's going to be the guy here in March for Florida, not only in the SEC tournament, but in the big dance as well. All right, let's wrap up the show. PJ's plays here on Send It In. A lot of good discussion today on the Big Ten tourney, on the SEC tourney, national championship futures. Make sure if you guys miss any part of the show, you go check out the podcast at the end. Send It In podcast available wherever you get it. You can listen to that, prepare you for the next week ahead of games. Tomorrow we're going to dive in to the Big East. We're going to look at the Big 12 as well. We're going to have Isaac Shade on. We're going to have Nick Henyon on to talk about the Players' Championship. Massive week of sports upcoming. As for today, our favorite plays, prop lock, we're going to the NBA. LeBron James out for a week or 2 with a groin injury. And this is the beauty of having Luka Doncic now on your team, as he just goes into full playmaker mode. Lakers at the Brooklyn Nets tonight. I'm going Luka over 39.5 points and assists against the Nets. Luka is obviously, the more games that he's played, he's starting to look more like his old self. And I think with LeBron out, this is when Luka turns back into Dallas Mavericks Luka. I think he gets us more than 40 points and assists tonight. So we'll go over that as our prop lock. Dog of the day, give me Youngstown State plus 2.5 against Cleveland State in the Horizon League semifinals. I liked Youngstown State at the beginning of the Horizon League tournament, 8-1 to win the league. I think they take care of Cleveland State tonight. Penguins got a good team. They had the best road record in the Horizon League this season. I like the fact that they can win away from home. So we'll go with Youngstown State tonight plus the points. And then my best bet is going to be Arkansas State on the money line, minus 130 against Troy tonight in the Sun Belt Championship game. Arkansas State is the best team in that league. Troy's very good. Should be a competitive, close game, but I think Arkansas State pulls them out. I'll take them on the money line to get the job done and punch their ticket to the NCAA tournament. Great show today, guys. A lot of college basketball talk. Again, if you missed any part of it, go check out the podcast. Looking forward to talking some more college hoops tomorrow. We'll see you then.